Good morning, and welcome to the first day of the Malibu sew-along. The pattern is brought to you by Simple Life Pattern Company. As always, I will link the pattern and everything that I'm using in the description of the video below. As we've done before, the first day of the sew-along is reserved for printing the pattern, taping it together, and cutting the fabric for the desired option that you're choosing. Because I have done away with printing patterns in the last month or so, I will skip that part. I'll be using my projector to cut the fabric, so I'm saving myself quite some time. But if you're not on the projector bandwagon yet, go ahead and print the pattern, tape it according to the instructions in the tutorial, and cut the size that you need for your dress, tunic, or peplum. For my sew-along, I'm going to be doing a size 4T with a twist back and probably a high-low circle skirt. The pattern has a gathered skirt or circle skirt, and the circle has both a high-low and a regular circle skirt. So, and the fabric that I'm using, of course, is this beautiful succulent prickles cotton lycra that's opening up for pre-order on Friday with backstitch. I will also link the main group in the description of the video. It's so stunning. Just look at the colors. Such beautiful colors. Stripes came out so amazing, and the details, just look at this succulent, how beautiful the details are. And I'm also will be using a big kit panel for the sew along. The big kit panel will accommodate sizes from babies to big kids. However, I find that the graphic on this one is larger than what I would need for a bodice, because I tend to put like the bodice, make it from a panel, like you can get the front and the back out of a panel. So this image, it's bigger for the 4T. It may work for bigger sizes, but because I cannot include Mr. Prickles in his little cactus attire on the front of the bodice, I'm going to be color blocking the skirt, the front part of the skirt, and I'll show you how I do that even with a projector, because some of you may think, how is color blocking happening with a projector? I'm going to show you, because I plan on using this panel for the like the first part of the skirt, and then color block the sides, and then the back will be the main print. I think it will turn out really cute, and whatever is left from my panel, I'm going to be using for the accents on the back, like for the lining when you twist it. It's going to be super cute. At least in my vision, it's going to turn out so cute. So I have already done a video on how to use the projector, how I use the projector that I have. It's a bow maker. And I can link that in the description below, like it's already available, that video. But just as a refresher, I'm going to tell you how to get started. Once you've installed your projector, see the other video, you go to your downloaded folder, you go to your projector file, because the Simple Life pattern comes with a projector file, which is amazing because you get to just open it, and you have the 5-inch grid, and you can double check the settings. Once you've set them, like I said in my previous video, once you set the settings, you won't have to change them, but you can always double check them. And then I just remove the grid, the 5-inch grid. I set my settings to what I know it works for me, in my case 45.2% viewing on full screen, and I get started. So I like, because I use I cut from this end of my table, but again, you don't have to do it. I like to turn the pattern this way. The fold is here instead of the fold of the skirt being here, just because that's how I'm used to cutting on my table, and that's how my room is set up in my sewing room. But obviously you don't have to do that. You can leave it the way it's opens in the pattern with the fold vertically. Mine will be like this here, the fold. So once everything is opened up and your settings are correct, you've double checked, we can get started on cutting. If you're using paper patterns, of course you'll be cutting the same way. So I like to start, this is my tip of the day. Every time you have like a limited amount of fabric, in my case I'm working with a yard and a panel. So I know I don't have like millions of yards and I can play with them as any way I want. Because I'm working with a limited amount of fabric, and I also have a directional print, I start with the skirt every time. Start with the biggest piece of the pattern, and then you can work your way around the other ones. Like for me, in my case, the biggest part of the panel of the pattern is the circle skirt. So I'm going to start by cutting that, and then I'm going to cut the bodice and the lining and the twist backs and sleeves. And so on. So let's get started with the skirt. First and foremost, I found the grain of my panel. That's very important. And then I found the center of my graphic. So I know if I stretch a little bit the fabric, I know the grain is correct. So this is the grain of the fabric. And then I make sure that the image is centered. What I like to do is just put my fingers where the image ends and just look on the other side to make sure that the image ends on the same spot. And I do feel like I could move it just a teensy bit, maybe a quarter of an inch. Alright, so, because I do want Mr. Prickles to be centered. Nope, it was moving in the wrong directions. Let me move it this way. Alright, so this is where my S ends. Okay, this is where my S ends, and I fold it, and this is where my F starts on free hugs. So now I'm happy. It's even if it's not perfect, I know visually it will look great, because the words start and end in the same spot. Alright, so this is my panel. This is the projection of the skirt. The dotted part, if you're reading the tutorial, the dotted line of the skirt, let me grab a paper so you can see it better. If you're not sure of any writings on your mat, because sometimes they can be hard to read, by placing a paper they will just show up. So for the video I'm going to show you with this paper. You see the dotted line, this one is for a regular circle skirt. If you want to do the high-low skirt, you need to use the solid line. This is for the dress, same thing goes for the other ones. But I am making a dress, so I'm focusing on that right now. There you go. So this is my fold line. I can see it, and I also, for ease, I arranged my fold line to be with, to work with the lines of my mat. So I know my fold is here, and the lines of my mat are right on top of it. So it's going to be easier for me when I place my panel. So I place my panel on fold, make sure. Another advantage of the projector, I can see exactly where things will lay and where the image will go on the skirt. So right now I have my fabric here. I know I'm going to have 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, so I don't want to go too high. Like I don't want my image like this or exactly on the line, because then the seam allowance will cut the image. So I'm putting it a little lower, maybe a 1/2 inch, maybe a little over a 1/2 inch lower. This way when the seam allowance, when I sew my skirt to the top and use the seam allowance, it's not going to affect the image. Alright, so I do encourage you to use paper weights. on fabric, even on just the fabric. And if you want, you can most definitely cut on the white. See, if you lay your fabric on the white part, it's going to be a lot easier to see. I prefer to see the image, so I'd rather squint a little and force my eye to see it on a black image than cut on the white. But that's just me. If you fold your fabric wrong sides, right sides together, then it's going to be easier to see the lines on the fabric. But I do see them. I'm not sure if the camera catches them as well as I see them, but I do see them enough to cut. So now I'm going to color block it. And see, this is where my skirt will end. So I have this part that I'm going to be using for the bodice afterwards. Alright, to color block, I went ahead and measured the opening here at the skirt. So just a rough measurement. For me is about 5 inches. Right here, like this quarter circle is 5 inches. Which means if I'm going to color block at 2.5 inches, so if I color block at 2.5 inches, that means right here, I need to make sure that I will add seam allowance, which means if I want to color block at 2.5 inches, I need to cut at 2 3/4. So I'm adding a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm putting my ruler right here, which means I am at 2 3/4. You can choose whatever amount you want. I just want to be like sort of in the middle. But if your fabric doesn't allow for it, like see, even mine right now, I don't think it will like me going like this. So I'm going to wiggle, like move without moving, like this point stays fixed. So I know I'm at 2 3. And then I'll move to where my fabric ends to make sure I have enough seam allowance. So right here. And if I do the high-low, I need to start cutting right here. Alright, so before I put my cutting tool to the fabric, I'll just double check one more time that I am at 1 3/4 here. Perfect. So now don't move anything and just start cutting. So my Mr. Prickles will be in the front of the skirt. There you go. Don't move your fabric, especially if you're using a projector. Make sure that everything is correct. And this is my paper. That's why it's going so slow. It's my paper ruler, rotary cutter. Alright, I got my fabric one now. So this I'll use for the bodice. This I don't need. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and cut my circle. Alright. Okay, so as you can see, this will be my skirt and this is the color block portion. I chose it based, I would have loved it if you were a little more like this, to be like right in the center, but the panel, I had to work with the size of the panel. So because of that, this will be my front, and I'm going to cut the other side of the color block for the front of the skirt. Obviously, if you're cutting just a solid without color blocking, you won't have to go through all of this. So now I know that I need to come 2 3/4 inches in here. And it's not going to be a fold right now. What I can do actually, before I do the color block part, I can do the second part, because again, go with the biggest pieces you have, cut those first. And because Mr. Prickles, this is like, it's not a panel, I really don't need to have it on the other side. So I'm going to show you how to cut the skirt with the projector with the wrong side up, so it's easier to see. And for my table and the distance from the lens to the table, the 4T is probably a max that I could get on my projection. If you're cutting on the floor and you've set up so you cut on the floor, your area will be much bigger, so you'll get more. If not, you'll have to move your fabric to get to the bigger size. All right, so we have that. We have the fold. So now what I'm cutting is the back of the skirt, and I'm going to do there you go. So now the fold is on fold, and I'm going to do the high-low on this. So I'll be cutting this line. Fabric weights are important because you don't want the fabric shifting on your mat. And because I'm using a directional print, I need to make sure Mr. Prickle faces the right way. Alright, so let's start at the top. Again with the wrong side. I need to put that one away, since I no longer need papers. My fabric rolled because of the washing here, and I didn't iron it before. If you use a little best press or starch before, after you wash it, I mean, it will not roll like this, but I don't always do that. Alright, so now I'm coming in on the lines. Okay, perfect. This line, I'm coming in on this line for the back of the skirt. Alright, so now I will go ahead and continue my color blocking for the front part, and I need two mirror image pieces, right? Because I have the center and then I need the two sides, the mirror sides. So I'll try to see what I can use, because trying to be as little wasteful as possible. I might need to cut two separate pieces instead of doing, and yeah, I think that's what I'm going to have to do. So I'll cut two pieces instead of one. I like two cuts instead of just one. All right, so I need to make sure my fabric is big enough to reach both corners here, but also big enough here. Okay, so I think this is what I got. I got it right here. So let me measure 2.5, or if you don't want to measure, you can take your pattern piece that you've already cut. But you need to remember that this one includes seam allowance. So you can use this pattern piece as a guide, but you also need to remember that you cannot cut like right here. You need to add the seam allowance. So I'll use this just as a guide for now, with the fold here, and this here. All right. See, it's not hard to do color blocking with a projector, but it takes a little bit of practice. Alright, so this will be one side of my skirt. So now using my ruler, okay, so this is where my skirt was, and I need to move it 1/4 of an inch. Let me see. I think we can do that with just another ruler. Or you can obviously use marking pens. Alright, so this is where my previous, my skirt panel ends. Yes, so I just need to move it 1/4 of an inch and cut. Perfect. So I move that 1/4 of an inch and I am good to go. And I also think I need to change my blade. Now that we cut one side, we can simply use the fabric as a guide for the other side, because now this piece already has seam allowance included. So this is how your front skirt will be. There you go. So we need the other side here. Okay, and we need the other side to be a mirror image. So I'm going to use my piece as a guide. And to make sure that Mr. Prickles is facing the correct way. There you go. So now that we have the biggest pieces of the pattern cut, whatever is left we'll use for the bodice. But now I don't have to worry that I don't have enough fabric for the skirt, because it's the first one that I cut. Alright, so because I laid them right sides together, I know right now that they will be giving me 2 mirror images. So to make it easy and not think about seam allowances, I'm just cutting around . Alright. So your skirts are done. So when I do the skirt portion of the sew along, I will add an extra step for my, you don't have to do it if you haven't color blocked it, for my steps, which will be to just sew these pieces together with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. There you go. So this is how it will look when it's final. Alright, so skirt is done. I have my skirt pieces. Now we need to work on the bodice. So you will have to scroll your image so the bodice is on the projected part. So let's start with the front. This is my front piece. There you go. This is my front piece. And let me find a cute Mr. Prickles to feature. Now I'm fussy cutting because I do want him to be featured like front and center. So this will be fussy cutting. Alright, so I'm gonna get this as a center. Use this as a center. And put him a little lower. No, it's not enough. If I get him too low, it's not gonna be enough. Okay, this might work. Yep, this will work like just right. I don't know how well you guys can see my lines, but I can. Here. So this is where the pattern is. So I can see that the ends are right here, and like right here. It's hard to see on a busy print, but again, I wanted to make sure that the image looks good, so I put my fabric with the right side up. But if you don't care, or if you have a tossed print, you can put it with the white side up. This way, it's you have nothing to worry about. All right, one pattern weight so my fabric doesn't shift, and cut the bodice. The front bodice is a solid piece. Needed a little help viewing it. Obviously the shadows you make with your body will affect this, so you will probably be better off, and I think I'm adding sleeves, so I'm going to cut the outside line. You will be better off just putting the fabric with the white side up, so you don't have to squint as much as I am right now. See, I'm having a little difficulty seeing it like right here. Okay, now I see it. But honestly, I think this piece I also have printed somewhere. I used it for calibration, so if I'm not sure, I can always double check it. And this is where the part of the tutorial where we learn to do what Alex says, not what Alex does. Alright, because Alex says put it on the white part there like this, and Alex did not. So my front bodice is ready. Look how cute he is. Oh my god, it's so cute. Alright, so I'm gonna again scroll my screen to cut my other pieces. I'm just trying to figure out which pattern piece I need next. I will be cutting the lining afterwards, off camera, because you don't need to see me cutting lining. It's gonna be just another piece of this. And then I will be doing the twist back. So I need these two pieces. And I might use the okay, perfect. So yes, this is a back bodice top, back bodice middle, and back bodice bottom for the twist one that I want to do. So I will use my panel scraps to incorporate whatever I have left and cut this, however many I can fit into this scrap. And these also will be cut too. One for the lining, one for the main. Perfect. Let's see. See how easy it is to see it on the white. So my lining is cut, which is the one that's the leftover panel part, Now I still need to cut the sleeves and the main of the twist back and also the lining for the front. So let's go ahead and cut one. I'm cutting from the main print right now. And this is the top for the twist back. Of course, use whatever options you have decided to go with. This will turn out so cute. Alright, so this is the top of the twist back. Then I'm gonna go ahead and cut the middle, and I'm gonna put a pin in it just to make sure I don't forget that that's the middle part. You can put a clip or something to remind you which one is the middle and which one is the top. Or of course you can use the notches as a guide. Alright. Pattern weights are very important when you're using a projector. You don't want your fabric to start shifting as you cut it. Hopefully I have enough for the sleeves. If not, I'll see. We'll have to improvise. But I'm doing short sleeves so they don't take a lot of fabric. Alright, so this is my middle. I'm going to put a pin in it to remember that this is my middle one. And now I need to cut the bottom, which is this piece right here. And let's see if I can work with this little guy here. And this little guy works. Woo! Perfect. Isn't it amazing how you don't have to worry about papers? I was actually kind enough and allowed my kid to use some paper from my printer because now I know I won't need it. There is a rule in my house, like you don't go in my office and take paper out of the printer unless I allow you to. Because they have their own paper, but sometimes they run out and they want to use mine. So now that I know I don't need it as much, I actually let them use my printer paper. So this is the back, the bottom back. I've already cut the lining for that, so let me do the sleeves. And then we are all good. So scroll to where the sleeves are on your projection. And mine will be right here. And I'm going to be doing that little sleeve here. Or I could, and I think I'm gonna do that, just flip the image, rotate, so my sleeve, the sleeve is vertical and I don't have to go all the way to the end of my table. So now my sleeve is right here. There you go, so I don't have to cut all the way here. My sleeve is right there. So fingers crossed that I have enough fabric. Come on, come on. I think I am lucky. And my sweet Nora is lucky too. Come on. I'm also trying to be lucky to make one cut, but that may not work. No, it's not gonna work with one cut, but it will work with 2 cuts. All right, just make sure you remember to mirror it. So I'm doing the short sleeve. Because it's so tiny, I put my pattern weights outside of it. And I'm going to add a little notch here myself to know that this is the center of the sleeve. All right. So this is the back. If you have difficulty reading the instructions with a projector, just use a paper like I'm doing. And I'm also putting like a little pin here just as a marking. That is the back of the sleeve. So now I have to do the same thing, but I need to flip my fabric. If I notice that I have a difficulty seeing it, because you want to do it mirror image, right? You can mirror it on your projector, or you can just flip the fabric. But if you see that you have difficulty reading it, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and use my other sleeve as a guide and cut just around the other sleeve. Because sometimes it's easier once you have one already done, especially with a busy print like this one. Oh, and I didn't mirror it. See, I didn't mirror it. These were supposed to be right sides together. Good thing I had some leftover fabric. Don't do what I did. These need to be right sides together. To make sure it's mirrored. There you go. So my sleeves are ready. All I have left to cut right now is the lining for the front, and I'm done with all the pattern pieces. I don't think this will be enough for the lining of the front, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's not gonna work. So I'm gonna just grab a random piece of fabric, like a solid or something, for the lining. You won't see the lining on the front. It's the lining on the back that is in the twist that you get to see. So the lining for the front can be any fabric that would have some sort of relationship with the main fabric, or not even, just white fabric would work too. So I'll go ahead and cut that. Do take a picture of the fabrics together, and that will count as your check-in for day 1 in the Backstitch Backroom group. I will also link the group. If you're watching me on YouTube, I will also link the group here, so you can make sure you join the sew along for some cool prizes. And I will see you back here tomorrow when we will be sewing we'll be prepping the back pieces and sewing the front neckline. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.